Roth, general manager and head winemaker at Tagaris Winery. We're a family-owned estate vineyard and winery founded by Mike Tagaris in 1984. He comes from Greek descent, and food and wine are very much a massive part of life and culture in Greece and Europe in general. He's a visionary farmer, been farming organic since the late 70s, early 80s, and that's been a passion of his, is to take care of the earth that he owns, and that he has family that has owned land in Greece for 250 years. And if it weren't for them taking care of it, they wouldn't have it anymore. And so that's very much his passion. So that brings us to the farming and raising the fruit. That's really where the separation is. We don't cut corners on farming. We farm organic. We're out there pulling weeds and leaf thinning and chasing pests away in natural fashions. We're planting cover crops of daffodils and any number of things that help control the pests. Being in the Great Northwest, we have real winters, which is fantastic. So that also helps us with that pest management. Farming is our passion, and that's the birthplace of our business. That's the birthplace of our livelihood. We want to, when we make the wine, when I make the wine, my philosophy is to showcase the beauty of our soil because we take care of it, our sites because we're thoughtful about where we farm, and our grape growing and our dedication to the labor and to taking care of the crop. And that shows in the fruit. The quality of the fruit is superior to many of our neighbors and many surrounding people. And it's because of taking care of the earth. It's because of that focus and dedication to the farming practice. So when we get the grapes in, we really want to showcase all of that. I don't want to be a winery that says we grow the finest grapes and then I source the finest barrels available. I want to be the winery that grows the finest grapes and shows you what those grapes look like. My belief, people that are interested in organic and interested in sustainability, I believe they really want to taste what that is. What does that mean? Well, if I show you the quality of a barrel, then I show you the quality of a barrel. I want to show you the quality of our fruit and why organic fruit is better and why that flavor is better, and how much more dynamic those wines can be. And I believe that the people that are interested in those wines, that is what they want, right? And I think we've seen that through the growth in our sales, our partnerships in bulk wine and private label jobs we've done for many. So what we really want to do again is not cover up the flavors with hope. We want to focus on brilliant acidity and balance. I don't like these high alcohol wines. When you go to Europe, and you go drink wines in Spain or Italy or Bordeaux, these wines are not crazy alcoholic 15, 17 alcohols. They're 11, 12, 13 kind of tops, alcohols. And those wines are so much more approachable, so much easier to drink. And then the awesome thing is you can drink more of them, you're not getting hammered, you're not taking wine shots, you're getting to enjoy, the quality of the glass of wine. And then when it pairs with food, it's even better. And that's our goal, that's our philosophy, and that's where we're coming from, is showcase how awesome grapes are and how awesome the earth is if you take care of it. Well, so my dad actually has never been in wine production. Our family, for 4 generations, I'm the 5th generation in the beverage business. For 4 generations, they were beer and wine salesmen. They sold cigars, beer, wine. During Prohibition, they bootlegged whiskey. And so they were in the sales side of the business. But I grew up in the wine business, but from the distribution end. My dad, massively influential in the Washington wine business. He took over our family's distribution company, I want to say 69 or 70 when he graduated college, something like that. And he was just very instrumental in the growth of the Washington wine business. His distribution company focused on Washington wine. That was his passion big time. All of his buddies, all the people I grew up with, they were all Uncle this and Uncle Uncle Rob and Uncle Bill and all the winery owners and winemakers and such. And so that's what I grew up around. And then his wine judging acumen is unreal. I mean, he's been a professional international wine judge for like 45 years. Just incredible, the different events and the things that he started our local events. He helped start the British Columbia Wine Festival. He co-founded the Pacific Rim International Wine Competition there in San Bernardino. He again just massively influential in many ways in the wine business, but from those sides. So growing up in that environment, he would have me like, or all of us kids, he would have us like smell our milk and tell you, what does that smell like? Smell your Coca-Cola. Hey, what's your Coca-Cola smell like? Really savor flavors. Hey, what does this taste like? And try and build in that muscle memory, if you will, from like to be able to taste something and then have an adjective. Because a lot of people, when they taste something, they go, "Oh, that tastes good." I don't know what it necessarily tastes like. And then when you hear somebody describe a wine, they're like, "Oh, this tastes like rose flower and cherry and blah 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 and cocoa spice and all of these things." All that is just your brain is wired to be able to have that association. That's the word I was looking for, association. And so he really developed that in me big time. My low alcohol winemaking philosophy, all of that stuff definitely has a lot to do with him. When I first got the head winemaking job at Tagaris after being the cellar master at Barnard Griffin for 12 years, when I came over there, I very much knew how to make Barnard Griffin wine, right? I could have made Tagaris taste exactly like Barnard Griffin, and I didn't want to do that. So my dad and I, we'd taste and talk, and he very much helped found the philosophy behind winemaking. We're best buddies. We have hockey tickets together. We do, I mean, so many things together. So anyway, it's he definitely is an influence and then he still is my top taster. Right. We put the wines together and then I'll run him down to his office or drop him off at his house or something on my way home, or he'll pop in and have a taste with us. And he very much is important to us. In fact, Mike Tagaris, the owner and founder of the winery and vineyard, he my dad's name is Coke. He says anytime we make a wine and gonna release it, he's like, "Hey, does Coke like it?" And so he appreciates his advice too and his comments. So yeah, he's a huge part of it. Throughout the growing season, of course, you're monitoring the crop and crop size and what the season is like, and you're adapting to it, whether you're watering more or less, and various things like that on the vineyard side. When we get closer to harvest, I start being out there a bit more regular in the vineyard. And you need the analytical data. You need the scientific, aspect of winemaking is hugely valuable. But there's other aspects of winemaking. If it was a number, if every year 3.72 pH and zero point 0.6 TA and 24.7 bricks and blah, blah, blah made the perfect wine, then you would just harvest that every time. But that's just not the case. Each growing season, each thing has its own, it's like a ring in a tree. Each year is going to be different. And so it has its own DNA, its own fingerprint. We're looking at the chemistry of the grapes, but we also want to look at the physical maturity and what that season looks like. You hear everybody talk about, peak of ripeness and, whatever their phrase or terminology might be of picking the grapes at the premium time. Well, that varies for different people. I know we have grape customers that they want to have a little shrivel on the grape. They want to see that dehydration start. I personally don't want any of that, right? I want juicy and when the grape is the most giving, if you will. So If you go out to the vineyard and you sample the grapes and you pop a couple in your mouth, and when you bite into them, they just juice out, or do you have to chew on them, or what is the texture and what is that flavor like? And all of those things matter, right? Each week, we do our sampling twice a week. Of course, we're tasting it. So we're not only looking at the chemistry and going like, oh, well, this looks like it's ready. Well, it might look like it's ready, but how does it smell and how does it taste? Because flavor and aroma is not a number. If it were, that would be really easy just to make that number. And so that's where we want to start with, is making sure that we harvest the grapes. And I don't like them being overripe. That goes into the alcohol, that goes into many other phenolic type things, acidic type things, that build the structure of the wine, right? So I want that natural acidity. Plenty of people say like, "Oh, I want to get the grapes really ripe, and then I can come back and add acidity." I want the natural acidity. I could add sugar too if you wanted riper grapes. And so, it all matters how you do that. Then when it comes to, again, being organic and being that we grow the grapes, I don't want to showcase the barrel that we put it in. So we do a lot in stainless. We do use a barrel, but most of them are very, very old, and so they're more of a neutral kind of barrel, which does add a nice aged characteristic to the wines if you want it to. Again, that organic approach, when we with our ingredients, we use organic yeast. Sometimes we might need some nutrients that is also organic, but we're not adding anything else. Many of the wines aren't sulfited. There's no sulfites added to many of the wines. They're fully organic. We also make the made with organic wines that do have sulfites added to them, but they're very minimal. And again, the ingredients we're not using, and there's not a lot of bad stuff people put in wine, really, in general, conventional wineries or organic, of course. But we really just use the minimum amount of everything, that we don't use any fining products. So all the wines are vegan friendly, if you will. And so just again, just trying to really give you a natural product, but not, I don't do a lot of spontaneous fermentations and stuff. Being organic, I need to be able to kind of control that fermentation. So I want to be able to use a really good yeast that again is organic, and but that's about all I want to use. So well, so the philosophy, the background of that again is the farming. Being the grape grower, I want to showcase the grape. The reception of that is massive. When people say go on like a wine tour and they go from one winery to the next, and they come to our place, especially if they've been to many wineries previous, and their mouth is and their palate is just heavy and shot and saturated with oak and alcohol, and they come into our place and they get a lively acid and a clean berry characteristic. And the wines separate themselves. I mean, it shows in competitions, just like the USA Trade tasting is a good example of that. I think we had four wines that were 96 point wines in that deal. I mean, it shows that people like that fruit. They're drinking a fruit based beverage. Imagine drinking orange juice and it didn't taste like oranges. You know what I mean? So that's why I think people want to taste grape. I think they want to. Well, for our bulk wine approach, when we started into that market, many of the wineries who do the bulk, it's more of like a bumper crop kind of a situation where they produce excess fruit, and it's just kind of, this is what we have. And it's not premium, it's just bulk volume. So we found that there was a very much a need for premium bulk wine. So I have this goofy phrase I like to say: I make the wines premiumly neutral. So I make them as best as we possibly can, but we leave them in a state where we can do whatever the client might want. So we really tailor this. Like I like to think of it as like a wedding planner almost, right? What is the goal of the wine? What's our price point? What's the audience? Who's buying it? All those things matter. And I want to work with the customer on those details. That's the funnest part of my job, in all honesty, is working and doing the custom stuff where somebody can send me a benchmark type wine. So they can go, I want the wine to taste like this Cabernet from Rutherford or something, right? And we'll taste it and we'll go, okay, this is what we need to do to achieve that, right? And we can work through any number of processes and use any number of tools, whether it be oak or tannins or fining agents, if that's what people are looking for. We don't use those in the Tagaris wines, but for customers, if a man wants a blue suit, you give him a blue suit. That's just how that works. So we want to tailor the wines directly to what the customer wants. When it comes to the consistency and the repetition and the quality control, we have an on-site laboratory where we do all of our own testing in real time. So if we're doing we have a certified bottling line, if you will. So it's up to the codes that you'd need to be able to bottle for Kirkland or be able to bottle for Trader Joe's or any of those brands that have certain stipulations of quality control and environment. So we have all of those abilities, and we very much we're very open with the customer too. So we're providing any information, allowing people to be on site. We love it when they're on site so we can show them how good we are at what we do. And anyway, so those are the things that we are able to do to deliver the product consistently. In terms of, we need and your bulk wine spirit show. These are the ways that we get in touch with them. So that we need that aspect is where it also starts. So. Well, so yes, we're consistently doing that. So we've installed motion censored lights, and being organic, we've eliminated the use of many chemicals and detergents and things like that. So we use just a lot of steam and things that are not going down the drain and such and going to the sewer. We use all of our waste from the grapes, our raw waste, if you will, so the fresh waste, like the stems and such. We have those go through a mulcher, and then those are put into a composting area, and they make compost for the vineyard out of that. Or the fermented stuff, they use that for dust control and many things out in the vineyard that are important. So everything is getting returned back to the earth from there. So we're not putting them we're not putting a lot of waste anywhere in the world. That's important to us. We're not filling up the drain. We are in a city. We're located in the city of Richland. And so with that, we have to be careful of what we're allowed to put down the drain. So eliminating detergents and chemicals and things like that really, really help. And then taking our raw waste and putting it back to the earth is another way that we're able to help. So we're always trying to find, and everybody wants to be more efficient. And so we're always trying to find the next thing that helps us, be more efficient. So, lighting, automatic fans, any of that stuff really, really helps. And you notice that in your power bills too. Another thing that we do is we insulated all of our tanks that are temperature controlled, heat and cold. And so they have, I think, 6 inches of foam insulation on them. So they, once again, very energy efficient, and just doing the best we can to do that out in the farm. Again, not using chemicals, not putting junk in the ground, glyphosate, that's Roundup, and not putting other pesticides out on the ground. Planting a nice cover crop. Again, vineyards are beautiful already. You know how pretty it is when you got beautiful little yellow daffodils all throughout the deal, because it keeps whatever leaf hopper or something away, and so all of that stuff is we're always learning and doing and trying the next thing, because it's a never growing battle. It changes every year too, because it's a new season. You're fighting a different pest. You have a different enemy. I hear people when I do tastings out of state and such, and it's not an untrue statement, but people perceive Washington wines as affordable, which is fantastic, but they're not saying it in like a complimentary fashion. They're like, that's a nice little wine and that's kind of a good drink. And it's like, it's like a secondary, market or whatever, and like, oh, you can find some real value there and stuff, which is, again, great to be thought of as affordable and great to be affordable, great to be thought of as a value, but the prestige isn't there. And the wines have outdone wines from all over the world. There's what put the wines of Napa on the map was the Paris tasting of 72, and the Chardonnay and the Cabernet from Napa beat the French ones from Burgundy and Bordeaux. Well, then in 76 or something, I think 76, Washington and California had a similar competition, and Washington Cabernet beat Stag's Leap Cabernet for the top wine. And so we can compete with anybody in the world. I would say a mistake that the Washington wine business as a whole made, and they did it many, many years ago, was to chase Napa Cab. If you look at France, as a whole country as it is, and look at America as a whole country as it is, they grow certain varieties in certain areas, because those grapes do better there, or because, however whatever their thought process was of it. Either way, it allows for differentiation and allows you to be unique. I believe in Washington State, we grow the finest Merlot of anywhere in the world, better than Bordeaux, better than South Africa, South America, anywhere. Certainly better than anywhere in California. Again, the Washington wine industry on a whole, we wanted to chase that Cabernet. We wanted to chase the Napa Cab. And I believe that we could really identify ourselves a hell of a lot better if we would be like, they're the right bank, we're the left bank, kind of a scenario, and have pushed that Merlot, because the quality of the Merlot that comes out of Washington is second to none. Right? Second to none. Our versatility in Washington is also second to none. It's unbelievable that we're such a cool area, but have the ability to ripen the grapes and have maturity. And we have such a long growing season that the flavor in these grapes develops and develops and develops. And then the chemistry of them, like the tannin structure and all of the color pigmentation, all of those things develop over time. So having a shorter growing season, you get what you get out of that. We can develop such amazing flavors in Washington across the board. You're talking world-class Riesling. I already told you about what I think of Merlot. Chardonnay is next level as well, right? We definitely do awesome in Cab. It's just a tough market because everybody is chasing that Cab. Syrah, oh shit. Syrah is some of the best in the world also. I mean, competing with Hermitage and Australian Shirazes. It's unbelievable the things we can do in Washington. And again, great to be known as a value, but people need to understand the quality part of that value. And I think that's where the disconnect is a little bit. This year, we actually have grafted over about 100 acres of vineyard from red grapes, primarily Cabernet, but some Merlot, maybe a little Syrah as well. So we talked earlier about the movement towards, low alcohol and white wines being a big movement. Obviously, winning the big award with you guys has made our Pinot Gris, a national item. We're sought after now, for it. And again, I think we had 4 really great awards in that competition, and you guys have done a great job promoting it, where we definitely have momentum in that direction. So we've grafted over many red grapes to the white grapes to keep up with that demand. We added Viognier, and the one that we're most excited about is Albarino. That one, another year out before we'll be able to harvest that one. But either way, that's the next upcoming thing. We did a test batch of sparkling wines. Boy, that was during COVID, 2020-ish or something like that. And it went over very, very well. So we have launched or going to be launching next year a full sparkling wine program. So we'll have a Blanc de Blanc and a Blanc de Noir, and they are fabulous. I mean, they're in the beginning stages still. They need to age and develop and go through that riddling process and all the stuff. But our test batch did amazing, had great reviews in the restaurant and sold incredibly well. So we're excited to be able to make a larger amount that we can bring to a distribution type market, because it's going to be fantastic. The ideal partner certainly has an emphasis on organic and sustainability. I think that partnership is necessary there. Whether a partner is big or small, you hate to be buried in the back of somebody's portfolio. So you really want at least have the opportunity to work and build your way to having importance in the portfolio. The other thing is, in the wine business is not like, I mean, the craft beer business, and everybody has a certain portion of that pie, but it's not like selling Coors Light or Bud Light, right? Like, so the salesman has to actually be a salesperson, right? They have to sample the wines and talk about the wines and teach about the wines and show them the wines, because nobody's going to come looking for them unless you bring them to them. So when you need that model, it's tough. I feel people ordering from an iPad where they're kind of just scrolling through and they kind of go get the stuff that they've always gotten before. So it does require a certain amount of hand salesmanship, I believe, in the wine business to be successful. At least that was in the old days. That's how it was done, and I think wine is a conversation, so people like to have that conversation. And when you go talk to a som at a restaurant, or a wine steward at a grocery store, or somebody at a fine wine shop, these people like to have the conversation of wine. They do it with their customers. They talk about wine. They drink wine with their friends and family, and they talk about it. And so I think that conversation is important. The support, growing up in the distribution business, was a hell of a lot of fun. Just an absolute blast to grow up in a warehouse, having races with my brother on pallet jacks and whatever it might be, right? And raising hell in the warehouse. But going on ride-alongs, I loved getting in the rig with my dad, and he would go deliver beer or wine or whatever, go change out kegs at a place. And I loved that interaction with the customer and the people. And I loved watching him interact with the people. And I learned a lot about that, where I enjoy getting in a rig with a salesman and going on a ride along and going and meeting customers and talking and having that conversation of wine with people. So that's one angle of support. Certainly things like, shelf talkers and bottleneckers and, case tags and, whatever it might be, we're happy to provide any of that print material. The education part, I think, is, especially for on-premise stuff, is huge. To do wine service, training, or even like analytical training, anything like that, happy to provide. And I find that can go a long way with an account. When us having a restaurant, we're constantly working on training our staff, and we want to have them have the best education they can. But after a point in time, people can become a little bit deaf to your voice. And so it's nice to have somebody else come in sometimes, even if they're just reiterating the stuff you've already said. It can be just like with my kids, right? Like, I can say to my kids something and they won't listen to me, but their teacher tells them, and they'll do it, right? And so it's the same thing of just having that other voice sometimes. So always happy to do that type of training and support. And now with the connectivity of Zoom and things like that, it makes it even easier to be able to do those in-person things and have that connection with the customer.